things rolling. Thank you all for coming. We would like to give each of you 2 minutes to kind of express who you are and what brings you here, and a little bit about yourself. We're going to start with Mr. Kern. Go ahead, sir.
Wow, you give me a chance to get prepared.
Oh.
Here, I'll pull this one back.
Standing again, I'm going to kill you.
No, I'm going to sit back down, I promise.
You can use the wireless one too.
That's all right, I'm good. I'm good. All right, thank you. Since the PTA forum last week, I hope some of you have taken the time to read my statement on Facebook, or have at least heard from your peers and colleagues about why I'm running for the Board of Education. For those of you that haven't, let me take a few minutes to elaborate. I'm a father of 3 children, all under the age of 10. I've been a Suffern resident for a majority of the past 18 years. Now, I didn't go through the Ramapo Central system. I spent my years in East Ramapo, graduated from Spring Valley High School, and I was in college when my parents moved to Montebello. I have a bachelor's in history from Ramapo College and a master's of library science from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. For the past 11 years, I've worked as supply chain director for a $2 billion packaging and contract manufacturing company. Now, over the past few years, I imagine most of you have witnessed the present Board of Education toe the line between civility and strife. The recent actions of the superintendent to seek employment in neighboring districts has only appeared to sour the relationship further, exposing a fragmented group of board members and administrators unable and perhaps unwilling to set aside differences for the greater good. Individually, the current board members are passionate, intelligent, respectable pillars of our town. Collectively, they force the public to question their transparency and ability to listen to the voices of the community. This is a precarious time for Ramapo Central. One only has to look at our eastern neighbor to see how a school system can truly deteriorate. While declining enrollment and some of the highest taxes in Rockland County, we need to find sensible ways to increase revenue and entice young families to our beautiful villages who will utilize our public schools. I am advocating for a greater push on tuition in and expanded universal pre-K to help achieve those respective goals. If we cannot find a viable way to keep all 5 elementary schools open, then I fear the sun will begin to set on our beloved community. But all hope is not lost. This district needs someone on its board with the ability to unify those who cannot see eye to eye, someone who can bring a sensible, rational, business-driven focus to its panel, and someone who has a vested interest in these remarkable schools for the next 14 years.
Mr. Kern, thank you. We just want 2 minutes, all right?
Oh, 2 minutes?
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
2 minutes.
Sorry,
Wow, I got
just
Now you're putting the pressure on us.
All right?
Okay,
All right,
we had
thanks.
3.
That's
Okay.
right. Sorry about that.
That's
Okay,
it.
no problem.
All right, hi, I'm Maureen Danzig. I live in Montebello. I'm married and have 2 children in the district. I'm a special education teacher at Rockland BOCES, and I currently work for BOCES, but at Pearl River High School. In the fall, I'll be starting a new program at BOCES at Dominican College. It's a program for juniors and seniors who are going for their regents, but also want to obtain the CDOS credential. So students will be interning in different departments on the campus, learning work skills. I haven't always been a teacher. I was actually in the commercial printing industry for about a dozen years before going back for my master's in special ed. My husband works for Kentucky Fried Chicken. It's actually where I met him over 30 years ago, so that should show my age. My son is a senior, and thank you, because he's graduating this year. So sincerely from the bottom of my heart, I do appreciate all the work you've done. My daughter's a freshman in the high school. I've been on the Ramapo Central School Board for 6 years. I'm also currently on the Rockland County School Board Association. When I was first approached to run for the board, Marcy Linke said to me, "Run for the board, it's 2 nights a month, you know, you're at the board meetings anyway, and it's fun." And I said, okay, and I get on the board, and we have to deal with the fallout from human resources, complete a superintendent search, the economy tanks, we have to make cuts, the tax cap is instituted, gap elimination, and then the renegotiation of all 7 contracts came around again. But my point is, we've lived through it, and I was on the board, and we had to make some very hard and unpopular decisions. But we made them, and it's brought us to where we are today, and I truly believe we are a really great district that is the envy of others. Do we still have places to go? Absolutely. But I've proven that I'll be there, and I'm not afraid to make those decisions. We need to focus on the positive. We are fiscally sound. Our budget passage rate is close to 80%. Our fiscal stress score is at 0. We have the highest Moody rating in all of the Rockland County school districts. Our residents were able to get rebates the last 2 years because of our efficiency plan and for staying under the tax cap. Our buildings are safer. We're upgrading our technology and our infrastructure. We're expanding STEAM. And we've established an advocacy committee, and with your help, we were able to stop Tuxedo's charter school approval and end the gap elimination, and stop the education tax credit for being approved. So where do we go now? There are concerns moving forward, and we have to work together, all of us. We need more discussions, interaction, and thoughtful conversations. So how do we do that? And I think right now is a perfect example of moving in the right direction, us talking to each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Guy.
Do I have extra time from leftover?
No.
Good try.
Okay. Just in the interest of time, I've left my district resume, I call it, in the back of the room on 2 chairs. For anyone who doesn't know me well enough, please feel free to read it thoroughly and contact me by email or phone if you have any questions regarding my background and what I've done for the past several years. I took interest in volunteering in Ramapo Central very early on when my first child started kindergarten. So that's a long time ago, given that first child is graduating college this year. Since then, I've caught the bug of volunteering and loving this district dearly and appreciating all the work that our educators do in this district that makes it what it is today. I'm extremely passionate about Ramapo Central, and on a different matter that was athletics related, someone defined me as, are you kidding? Of course she's gonna decide that way. She bleeds Suffern blue. And those words play in my ear all the time. I do bleed Suffern blue, apparently. I wear a lot of blue clothes. I'm very passionate about this district and extremely patriotic about protecting the quality of education that my children received and that I hope other children will continue to receive. My medical background is known to a lot of people. I have an MD. I also have graduate studies at Columbia University in the field of public health, specifically environmental sciences. I also volunteer in a lot of the Rockland County Department of Health committees that are specific to school health, namely the physical activity work group, which other administrators from our district serve on, and it offers us continuity when we come back into our own local meetings regarding health and wellness. So that's been great, and also nutrition and health fairs and all health related topics. I serve on the advocacy committee. That's an area that I'm very passionate about and seek information constantly. What do we need to advocate for? I serve with Maureen, who chairs that committee, since I started 2 years ago on the Board of Education. I also serve on our School Health and Wellness Coalition, which is related to school health and wellness. Am I done?
Yes.
My quick window is my exposure to state events that helps accentuate my learning regarding advocacy issues in terms of education in the state of New York and our district per se.
Thank you very much to all of you. Let's go right down the line here. We'll go backwards in order. What is your #1 priority if elected to the board? Mr. Guy, go ahead.
My #1 priority is communication. There's huge need for improvement in the area of communication in our district. That has been my goal when I ran first in 2014, and I continue to strive to improve our communication. We need more forums. We need to bring the teachers and the parents equally to the table whenever major decisions are being made. We have to have extreme transparency in communicating information. If I have knowledge about a topic, I want to share it with fellow board members as well as with administration, but I also want parents and the teachers to be on board and to be part of the decision making. Strategic planning, for example, needs to be an ongoing process all year and not just seasonally. Whenever we're making a big decision, everybody needs to be part of that decision making, and we've seen how well that worked recently regarding a major decision that we're voting on the 17th, and how a community forum, although I'll bet delayed and not exactly what I started off trying to bring in, but still the decision involved the community, you know, whether blogging or coming in person to air or sending us emails to air their concerns or their position on matters. So I want communication to be #1. That will only lead to success for our students and striving for our children in this district, which is our focus, obviously, all of us.
Great, thank you.
I agree with Amani. Communication is a big piece. We've been told we've been, shut off, that we're not communicating. And I know at board meetings it's hard. Yeah, we have to follow a strict protocol. We run a business meeting. But don't be afraid to approach us. I mean, shoot me an email, give me a phone call. I try and be at all the events and talk to teachers and talk to parents. And I want that, and maybe that message isn't getting out enough, that we are available, and I believe we are. So how can we do that even better? Invite us to your meetings. Like I said, this is a beginning of something. I've suggested going to building level PTAs and just really making ourselves more open, but we also need you guys to come to us and talk to us too.
I'll agree. The number one theme, the number one course of action is to unify. To get onto this board, the key piece is to have 7 members, 7 board members work in unity with each other, be able to clearly communicate with the public, be able to be transparent, be able to work as a cohesive team with a relationship with the public. We can't lose sight of the fact that these 7 board members that sit there every few weeks are elected by this community. They're put there because the community believes they're the best people to lead this district. So the board really needs to act as one and serve this community as one.
Great, thank you all. We'll go back the other way now. For the second time in 5 years, the superintendent has recommended and the board has approved going below the maximum allowable tax cap. This has a dual effect. It adds less money to be used for our schools and a decrease in the amount of revenue that can be raised under the tax cap for every year going forward. In your opinion, is this a wise fiscal policy for our schools? Please explain. Go ahead.
Going to the tax cap, in my opinion, should be what we strive to do. I realize that we had a 0% tax levy. Taxes will still go up for people that live in the villages. It's a matter of truth that will happen. It's important to understand by not going to the cap what was actually saved per resident. Is it $30 or is it $300? As you've indicated, not going to the tax cap reduces the overall budget expectation for the following year. In the uncertain times that I believe these villages are in and this district is in, I do not believe it's wise to leave money on the table. There is too much concern for what may happen in the years to come, whether it's 5 years or 10 years down the road. We need to be able to have a budget that is the best that it can be, that is going to afford this community to get the most they can when they can.
When we made the decision, I believe it was about 4 years ago, it was under the assumption, under the rules that we had, that we were going to be able to use that the following year. So once we did that, because we were trying to be, it was over 2% at that point. I think it was 2.79, and we went to like 2.58. So we thought we were going to be able to save it for the following year because we knew the following year was going to be a little more tight. They changed the rules, as unfortunately sometimes they do. So we did lose out on that point. This year, there's so much instability with Novartis, with the assessed value going down, that we can't crush our homeowners. We have to make it viable for them to live here. We complain a lot about our high taxes and we want the good schools, and I understand that. So we have to be responsible to their needs also. They have invested a lot of money in the schools. We were able to add things this year that we didn't have, that we need, and so we wanted to be responsible to the homeowners and leave it at 0.
So I agree with some points Maureen and Matt have made in that we want to basically be able to serve our students as best as we can and have the funds to do so, to maintain our buildings, maintain our teachers, keep them in, and also serve our students as best as we can with the best level of education and maintaining the programs that we have currently. With that in mind, we were able to do all of the above without reaching higher taxes that we could have elected to do. Auditors in the past, as everyone I'm sure is aware, have cited us for doing so, for keeping extra money for the future. So with that in mind, and being responsible to the taxpayers, but mostly to our students, we can't go over what we need, and what we needed in the upcoming year has been accomplished and served with no layoffs, with no programs cut, with no buildings closing. And I would say that would be our priority to achieve every year, not to try to over budget and then not be able to sustain it in the future. You don't want to start a program this year because you are able to go up to the tax cap and then you can't fund it next year and close it and shut it down. Where's the accomplishment in that? We want to be able to sustain whatever we start. And hopefully this budget is starting items that we can sustain moving forward.
Great, thank you. Mrs. Danzig, this one was directly to you. Your votes regarding the veterans tax exemption and the 0% increase under the tax cap reflect your desire to be sensitive to the taxpayers. Yet, during your term, legal expenses have increased significantly. There are currently 4 arbitrations and 3 PERB hearings. One arbitration has lasted 3 years. Do you think this is a wise way to spend taxpayer money?
I wouldn't spend it if we didn't have to. Obviously, there was a need for that.
Anything else you'd like to say about that or not? That's all. Okay. Let's see. To the incumbents, the district has cut homework club, Avid, summer school, social workers, resource centers, psychologists. Most of these cuts have not been restored. Is there a reason why the district chose to cut only programs that affect the students that are the most at the most risk?
That's a good question, and trust me, my heart lies with special education, and so I understand the feelings there. We tried to do what was in the best interest of all students, and we felt we had the supports there necessary for those students. I think we have to look at moving forward and seeing what we need now, and and not just replacing what we had with what we had. Looking forward and saying what do we need, show us the need. Make a responsible choice, and then prove that the need was there.
Great, thank you.
Is it my
You're
turn?
one of the incumbents.
Oh, it's
You're an incumbent.
That's right. I am an incumbent. Sustainability, which was the theme in my last answer, applies here extremely. First of all, those cuts happened before I joined the board. Not proud of them. Wish they didn't happen. Under my watch, cuts will only happen if we can't help but cut. And I will do my due diligence to avoid as many cuts as possible. And also looking at how many children are involved and what's the least possible damage. And how do we maintain things? Is there any way we can modify the program so that we don't cut it, but it still happens and still serves the children? Thinking outside the box a little bit is the way I like to tackle these problems, rather than sever something completely. Can we reduce the number of hours? Can we reduce the size and only serve those at highest risk? I would look a lot more in depth before cuts are made, and that's going to be my goal if we ever face that situation again.
Excellent, thank you. Mr. Kern, sorry you were out of the loop there. We'll start back with you. Several districts have rescinded their membership in New York State, in the New York School Boards Association because of their support of the Common Core. If elected, will you consider this?
Would I consider it? Let me start by saying that I'm certainly not an advocate for Common Core. I have opted out. My daughter, the last 2 years, it's a flawed system, it's flawed testing. However, I also need to be clear that without having the full understanding of what it is that we're saying, I need to have full understanding of why they pulled out. I would want to see what districts, what their reasoning was, what their student body is like. This is information I don't have at the moment. I'd be happy to give an answer if I was provided that, but I would hate to make an uneducated decision.
Excellent, thank you.
Go
Go ahead,
so we
break
know.
that for everyone.
Oh.
This is to all. I'm sorry.
That was for everybody.
That was for everybody? I'm sorry. That was
Yes,
just for
you want to
Mr.
read it
Kern.
again? RCSD?
Can you read it again? Yeah.
Rampart Central School District has one of the highest oh wait, that's the wrong question. Many districts have passed resolutions condemning New York State.
You tossed it away.
Sorry. Several districts have rescinded their membership in the New York State School Boards Association because of their support of the Common Core. If elected, will you consider this? Please explain.
I haven't heard of the school districts that have, so again, I think I agree with Mr. Kern. I'd like to see who they are and what their rationale is behind it.
Pleasantville and New Paltz.
New Paltz, I think, pulled for multiple reasons, and that wasn't, they were pulling for a lot of reasons. They had a lot of problems with NYSBA, and I don't think it was just specifically Common Core. So there was a lot of things going on with New Paltz. I'm not sure about Pleasantville. I'd have to look into it. Right now, I'm not ready. I would not be ready to make that decision. We get a lot of wonderful information through NYSBA. We get a lot of backing and a lot of trainings through them. I think it might be detrimental to pull out of their that system.
Okay, so I'm aware of some districts that have pulled out of New York State School Board Association. We've received some correspondence regarding that. And I believe there were some political situations that also added to the Common Core position. So it wasn't the single reason why those districts have pulled out. So it's important to really look at what were the reasons specifically. And there were only very few. The majority of districts still continue to be part of this organization. And I have to say, the organization's position on Common Core, you know, has been developing as I've been watching it. I don't think any organization that basically teachers, parents, or school boards are part of approved of how Common Core had been rolled so quickly and so prematurely and not ready for children to be subjected to it. So I don't know of any organization representing any of us that actually supported Common Core in its past condition. I think they supported basically more input from teachers, more input from parents, and definitely the process to be improved. We will have to weigh our pros and cons of staying with an organization or dropping it out when we make such a major decision, but the majority of districts are still part of it. And we continue to monitor what do we get in return. We get a lot of benefits for our district that we have to weigh against a position as such that we may disagree with.
Excellent. You can hold on to the microphone. We'll go right back down the line. Can you address Dr. Adams' highly publicized job searches? Specifically, what are your thoughts about an early renegotiation of his contract just prior to his search? And will you negotiate this again?
Negotiate the contract again?
Yeah.
So, as you are all aware, I'm a current member of the Board of Education, and thereby I'm bound by laws and regulations that prevent me from discussing a personnel matter in public. As far as contract negotiations, which is public knowledge, I had just joined the board when this was going on. At that time, this happened. It hasn't happened since, so I haven't been part of that in the past year or so. Should the need happen at any point, I will be very vigilant in making sure that our district is served and our children are served in any sort of contract negotiations, not just the superintendent's, anybody else's. I've put the children's needs and the district's success as a #1 priority. And that's what I can vouch to. As far as details of contracts, these are personnel matters that we have to only discuss as per the requirements of the law. So, vigilant, very detailed. If there's extra time needed on anything to make a decision, I will never make a hasty decision. I will get all the information, research, and make the right decision, hopefully for our children and our district and our teachers and everyone involved.
I know it's frustrating when we say we can't talk about it because it's a personnel issue, I get it. But we can't. Dr. Adams' contract was renegotiated about 2 years ago, I believe. And so he's got about 2 more years on it. And, sorry, I just lost my train of thought. And he is we are doing the superintendent evaluation as we speak.
Well, clearly, you already know my feelings from my opening statement. The idea that the sitting superintendent of this district would choose to seek employment in other areas, and not just one, but 3 finalists in 3 different schools, one of which is within this county, speaks volumes to me. I think it's frankly appalling. I think that it's something that should have been handled better by the board. It should have been more transparent with the community, with the public, to understand what exactly is going on, what is driving somebody who is the superintendent of one of the top districts in the county to want to leave? I can't answer that question, unfortunately. I don't know the dynamic. I think that Dr. Adams is an intelligent person. I don't understand his position on why he would leave. I can only assume that it's because of tension between him and other administrators, him and the board, him and the teachers, him and the union. Be that as it may, it would be very difficult for me to look at somebody and renegotiate a contract knowing how liable they would be to turn their back on this district. What I would ask is to get on this board and speak with him. I don't have a relationship with Dr. Adams. I would like to have a relationship with Dr. Adams. I'd like to understand where his concerns are. Why is he under the impression that he needs to be somewhere else? His evaluation is something that obviously should be done. I know Ms. Danzig has indicated that it's currently being done. I would like to see the instrument that should be available in the admin office in Hilburn. It's not there. I did try to seek the actual tool. It was not available for me. You know, we could keep talking about the superintendent, but I'm sure that there are possibly other questions that want to get answered before we wrap.
All right, so here, I'll tell you, hold on to the microphone, sir. RCSD has one of the highest opt-out rates in the region. If elected, what will you do to either curtail or support this movement? Which way are you leaning?
Well, I've already stated I've opted out my own children. So until we can fix the system, until we can make what's happening in our schools more achievable, where we can turn this outfit into something where students aren't feeling such stress, aren't being so burdened at such a young age, it's so unnecessary. And quite frankly, you're, in my opinion, taking time away from teachers to follow a real lessons plan, to teach these students something that is important, that's part of what we've all been taught growing up. We should not be turning our back on the relationship between a teacher and a student because of a standardized test.
Thank you.
As board members, we have to follow the rules set by SED. So we have to make sure that the tests are given every year. I can't, and I won't tell a parent whether to have their child sit for that test or to opt it out. That's a parent choice. Personally, I think the opt-out movement has been beneficial, and they should almost, maybe be even applauded, because that was what brought changes to the testing. Where we go moving forward from that, I'm not sure. I would hope that SED gets the message, and I know they made some changes, probably not enough. I wish we could get away from the testing every year. It seems a little redundant. But what I do worry about as a board member in Ramapo Central is, what are they going to do? And obviously they've threatened, decreasing funding and taking away reward school status. I hope that doesn't happen, and that only time will tell. So we'll have to see what happens. Hopefully they'll make a right change, and it won't be so onerous that the children will be able to take the test.
Would you be willing to let us know what you did with your children concerning the outcome?
I had my daughter take the test.
Thank you.
So my position on that is, a parent is the best judge of their own child, and every child is very different from the other. Hence, the parent should be the one deciding what's best for their child individually, and because their best interest is their #1 priority. And so I would never take that away. In terms of the opt-out movement, I actually would be glad to applaud the movement, because I think without the movement, we wouldn't have seen the changes that are now being attempted, at least with more feedback and input from teachers, administrators, and parents. That wouldn't have happened if everybody just went ahead and took it and played by the rules. On the other hand, as Maureen says, as a school board, we look beyond that. We look at the bigger picture as well of how will the district be penalized? Will we lose funding? As we all know, funding is very important to maintain teacher positions, to maintain programs, and a quality of education for our children. So do we lose anything in return of a large number of opt-outs? That's the burden on us to evaluate that and continue to look at it. On the other hand, more burden that's not discussed enough that I feel I can also push for as a board member is how do we make the environment pleasant for these children in order for learning to be priority and not teaching for the test. Whether a parent has decided to opt in or opt out, and that's their individual decision, how do we make that decision not be a burden on that child, where it's a pleasant environment in school regardless of what you and your parents decided at home. Most of the time it's the parents, because these are younger children. So assuming a pleasant and positive learning environment is number one for those children, to not have a traumatic experience that actually scares them from the test moving forward. And I've given funny examples of what I did with my kids so that they're not scared to take a test and they're actually looking forward to it because there were freebies that came along. But these are my personal experiences, and it worked for my children, and what works for one child is very different from the other. We have to focus that we are educating our children and not just teaching for tests. That's very important. And these are responsibilities a school board looks at beyond what each individual parent's going to do for their kids. But I am hopeful and optimistic that I'm seeing a lot more from NYSED trying to get feedback from the teachers. Some of our own teachers at Ramco Central have contributed to that. And getting that feedback from teachers and parents is invaluable. You cannot replace that by a company that designs the test.
Thank you very much, all of you. If enrollment declines, would you be in favor of decreasing class sizes rather than cutting teaching positions? Small class size is an investment that would benefit all levels of students. Go ahead.
Obviously, as a parent, I always wanted the small class size, and I will continue to advocate for that, absolutely. Kids learn better one-on-one or in a smaller group than in a large size where the teacher cannot pay attention to each individual student. But remember, money limits. So to the extent that is feasible and affordable for our district to continue to reduce class sizes. On the other hand, if you know, teachers that have multiple skills can be utilized in different potentials and in different roles, that's another way to go as well. To be very creative with how we utilize the amazing talents that our teachers have right here in Ramapo is the way to go. You can't judge these things. These are tough financial times. You can't go the conventional way to solve problems anymore. We have to think at a bigger picture.
I think with decreasing enrollment, almost smaller class sizes will become inevitable. If you have, you know, we see it in Sloatsburg a lot, right? So you have 32 kids in a grade, you're going to have 2 classes of 16, or maybe we may put 18 or 20. You have to look at it financially, you know, as much as we want to keep every teacher, and we do. I don't think having a general ed classroom of 8 elementary school students is necessarily a good idea. So again, it's going to have to be what the numbers look like. Trying again, you know, we were lucky this year. We had 1 elementary school teacher retire. We had another 1 resign, so we didn't have to cut anyone. So we'll have to look as it goes. No good answer at the moment.
Well, declining enrollment and smaller class sizes is probably the only positive that would come out of declining enrollment. Now, declining enrollment is a serious issue in this district. We have 5 elementary schools. There is certainly risk over the next few years, whether it's 3, whether it's 5, whether it's 7, that one of them will have to close. I believe that once one closes, this district will never be the same again. All you have to do is look to East Ramapo and the problems that they encounter and say to ourselves, how can we make this district viable for the next generation? We need to look at not just increasing enrollment, we need to look at increasing revenue. That can be any number of ways. You can use tuition in, you can expand universal pre-K, you can be more savvy with social media. I think that this district has a lot to offer. It's a fantastic place to live. It needs a way to entice people to move back and not continue to move away.
Thank you very much, Mr. Okay, as our student population becomes more diverse, the importance of summer school becomes even more important. Given our group financial status, is there any plan to reinstate summer school or, bring it back to any of those programs? I know you don't have liberty to that, but if you can answer it at all, it'd be great. Thank you.
I would be a huge advocate for reinstating summer school. I think it's a program that should certainly be part of what we offer as a district.
That was a thing we had to cut. That was something we had to cut, but we knew it was offered on the county level. I know that there were kids that did have a problem as far as transportation, getting back and forth, and that is problematic. And forgive me, I know there was discussion of it at the high school level with Pat Breen, talking about maybe a different type of program, and I guess that didn't come out this year in the budget, but I know there is discussion going on and seeing how best we can serve the kids.
Before cutting any programs, and if you have to balance the program against another, and if unfortunately a cut is unavoidable, that's the only time I would cut anything, is if it's truly unavoidable. We have to look at what services can we offer in a different pattern, in a different way, given the resources we have and the financial limits we would have. That's number one. Also, how it would hurt the least and hurt the least number of students, and how else would compensate for that program. So you can't just throw something out of the hat. Given my personal experience, I've utilized with my children certain programs, not others. That would not be in the scale. It would be what would benefit the majority of students, and how do we compensate for a lost program? How do we make up for it?
Great. Okay, next question. Will there be a bilingual kindergarten class at Montebello? At the last forum, it was indicated that there would be, yet Montebello teachers have been advised that there would not be. Any information regarding that?
Okay, as you know, the kindergarten numbers change up to the very last minute. There are mandates coming down from NYSED related to E&L students, where we have requirements. Once the number reaches a certain limit, then we are obliged to have the class. So the numbers are being looked at as we speak, and they're known to change through the summer. That's the information I was given.
It's still being discussed, because they want to see if we have enough English-speaking children and enough Spanish-speaking children in order to balance this out. And that's why on the budget, I think the second E&L teacher was like E&L/bilingual, because it was depending who we were going to need in case that program does open up. So it's still being discussed. I don't believe there's been a final answer, but I believe the hope is that we can do it. It's just whether the number is going to be able to actually do it.
Mr. Kern, I'll start off with you on this one. Sorry, man, you couldn't really...
I'll just say that as far as that issue is concerned, I have a son who's about to enter kindergarten, and we've had the discussion at home. I think it's a fantastic idea, and at Montebello, and would, if offered, would more than likely put him into that class.
Excellent, thank you. All right, this is going to be to all of you. The board approved the veterans tax exemption. Mrs. Danzig, you voted no. Why? Mrs. DeGuy, you voted yes. Why? Mr. Kern, you support the veterans tax exemption?
Yes, I would support the veterans tax exemption.
Thank you.
I voted no, and it's not that I don't think veterans need a tax, deserve a tax exemption. I value everything they've done for our country, but I think the way it was set up was wrong. I believe if Albany wants to pass an exemption, then they should fund it. So it should have been funded through the STAR program. I think when you let it makes it uneven. So there's only veterans in certain districts that are now getting an exemption instead of across the state. Had you done it through the STAR program, everyone would have fed into it, not only homeowners, right? And all veterans would have been able to receive it. It also only hits the veterans who are homeowners. What about a veteran's income tax exemption? You have people that rent that are veterans, So I don't think they were hitting the mark. There is legislation out there about Albany funding it instead of the local taxpayers. I think with the way we're going and so many districts have approved it, that'll probably never pass. So I support what the board's decision was. I certainly understand why they did it, and I just wanted to, make my point that I didn't think it was fair to all the taxpayers. It could have been done in a better way.
This was a very difficult decision to make. As much as I really would love it to alleviate the tax burden on all taxpayers, including myself, in that mix, there were many other criteria to look at before that. So for example, the STAR exemption was not coming. We waited long enough as a district. I wasn't part of the vote the first time. I wasn't on the board yet, but this time was part of the conversation since I got on, and we've been discussing it. I had attended a meeting actually in a neighboring school district that shall not be named, to which I became privy to some of the statistics they've collected and some of the numbers, and why their board the previous evening actually voted yes to allowing the tax exemption. We were becoming one of the last 3 or 4 districts in the county that had not approved it. And so I came back and I asked our board to please reconsider, to sit together and have a new discussion with new up-to-date numbers. To my knowledge, the numbers that were looked at a couple of years ago before my time were not necessarily precise. So we looked at new numbers, new statistics, and those numbers really helped shape my personal position on that the burden was actually really very small. Any burden is extra taxes we don't want to pay, but it was still a lot smaller than what had been presented in the past. And in terms of veterans who are renting veterans, they have other ways to get a break through other programs that are not available for homeowners. So I looked at that as well, other available services through the Veterans Administrations and other groups. So I'm wholeheartedly supporting my position and feeling very strongly that I made the right decision considering the facts that we were given this time around.
Excellent, thank you. Okay. The town of Ramapo is charging taxpayers 1%, nearly $1 million, to collect school taxes. No other town in New York State charges such exorbitant fees. Do you have any plans to remedy this or change the way this process is going?
Do I start?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so this has been presented to us actually, and we have done a lot of research in that topic. Our legal advisor has sent correspondence to the town and to several legislators in order to try to collect our own taxes. It's something that's being worked on as we speak, and I'm supporting that, absolutely. Anything we could save the district money in any way, I will fully support it, and this is one of the ways we're trying to do that.
Yes, it's outrageous that the town of Ramapo does that. The problem is we can't change it unless the town approves us to change it. So we have offered to collect our own taxes. It would still be at a cost, but we estimated it to be under $200,000. They collect 1%, which is close to $1 million. We can't do it again unless they approve us to be able to do it. So we did, Assemblywoman Jaffe has a piece of legislation out there that's been co-signed also by Carl Grabnick, that we introduced him to it and explained it to him. It's out there. We've asked Jaffe to let us know what we can do to back her with that. We're still waiting for her to let us know, but we are aware of it and we're trying to work through it.
It's something that we absolutely should look into. I mean, it's obscene if they're collecting a number that is far beyond what they could be. I'm not sure how the board could be involved to a large degree with the town of Ramapo. It's obviously something that I would certainly want to get involved with and understand. Make no mistake that there's a direct correlation between the town and the districts, whether or not the board has oversight over certain parts of what happens within the town. It's a symbiotic relationship. One has a direct impact on the other. So it's in all of our best interests to work together with the town.
Great, thank you very much. We're about to be kicked out by the Salisbury Elementary School students right now. So we'd like to thank the three of you very much. We have one more question we're going to give you. There are some questions we didn't get to. We apologize. We're kind of running out of time here. But we want to thank the three of you for spending your time and everything. And we're just going to go maybe just right off the top of your head, quick answer. What are we going to do to create a positive, respective culture on the school board? Mr. Kern, fire away.
Look, I'm a great listener. I'm a unifier. I'm a team player. It's what I do all day, every day. I know how to bring people together. I know how to get the best out of people. I just want the opportunity to get on this board to help what seems so fragmented pull together and work together as a true 7-person unit.
I think we are making progress, and it is a work in progress. And I spend a lot of time there. I'm there early. We're trying to develop our relationships better. And again, we're not perfect, but we're moving in the right direction, I think.
So maintaining mutual respect for opinions that may be different from yours is very important. There are 7 people board members that are voted by this community in order to have different points of view and not agree on everything. To maintain respect and understanding and try to come to some sort of agreement, because this is how decisions are made on a school board, has been a huge challenge and probably has taken the most work in 2 difficult years. Challenging, testy at times, but I'm always proud to walk away with one goal. If we all put the children's success, well-being, and education in our forefront, everything else falls into place. Decisions that are seemingly so difficult to make are actually smoother to make, and it's easier to agree, because the success of our children is based on the amazing, talented teachers that are very committed and dedicated that we have in this district. It's based on a unified district that sits together at the table and makes decisions together that serve our children best. We need to be unified. We need to get over differences because we have a common goal. The success of this district is success for the teachers, the students, the families, our home values, everything. Everything is based on this district's success. We have awards that we've won by the history of being a unified district that is not afraid to speak and communicate and unite and have a common goal. If we lose sight of that and we start acting as variables and everybody has their own goals and we never come to the table and discuss them, we will fall apart. And so it's the same thing on the school board. We have different points of view. We need to sit at the table and find out what's best for the children. And that should be simple. It should not be as hard as it is sometimes once we have focus on that common goal. I vouch to do even better than I've tried so far to communicate every information that I have so everybody's in the know. Nobody's knowing some information and someone is not. We're all at the same table knowing the same information and making a decision together. I vouch to reach out to anyone who reaches out to me and more in order to communicate information that I have that I'm allowed to share by the laws that prohibit us from sharing certain things, personnel matters, etc. So I can do better. I can keep working harder and I can do better, and this is why I've decided to run for another term, is to continue the work, but even with 2 years of experience, do an even better job.
Great. Thank you. I think what's best for the children of Salisbury is for us to get the heck.
Yes. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much.